welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got a couple of things we're going to talk about on the episode here today. We got an extension, which I'm excited to hear your take on. We got a suspension that I'm very excited to hear your take on. And we're also going to be talking about the incredibly tight Eastern playoff race that we kind of figured would be coming at some point this season. So, with all that said, do you have anywhere in particular you want to start?
You know what? I think right off the rip, I think we just dive right into the suspension here.
Fair enough. It's all about the game and how you play it. And Ryan Hartman has been suspended 10 games for essentially pedigreeing Tim Stützle off the faceoff. Yeah, the NHL Players Association has filed an appeal on behalf of Hartman, but I doubt it'll get reduced. Really, if it does, it'll be 1 or 2 games at most. Like pretty much everyone always tries to appeal it because why wouldn't you? There's no reason not to. Like you're not doing anything anyway. You're already suspended. But I don't think I didn't see anybody saying this was too much. And it's a 10-game suspension. That's a lot.
Well, I mean, this is his fourth suspension in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, and then not only to have that history of being a scumbag out there to then go out and do this.
It was fucking brutal, man.
Yeah, whatever way you try and slice it, even if you're a Minnesota fan, he tried to injure Stützle. And you could say, oh, you can't even justify it by saying he was making a hockey play. He was doing this. Like, it was intent to injure. He has a history. 10 games, I think, is more than fair. If it was more, I wouldn't oppose to it. I didn't think it was going to be 10. I thought it was going to be like somewhere in that 6 to 8 range. Maybe just a nice even 7. I was actually kind of surprised to see that they did hand out 10, but I think it's completely fair. And I don't expect it to be lowered after the appeal.
Yeah, if it gets lowered, it's by 1 game, pretty much, like 1 or 2, but I doubt they'll even do that. I was actually kind of expecting around 10 just because of the nature of it. Just the way there's nothing to pretend like it was a hockey play. He never tried to get his stick on the puck, nothing. He just leaned on him, drove his head into the ice. Like it was just brutal the whole way. And between that and his, not just his, a good amount of history, but very recent history. Like you said, 4 suspensions in 2 years is a lot. Like even guys like, Tom Wilson, whenever it comes up, the league doesn't want to suspend him for too long. And, they bring up, he's only had 1 or 2 suspensions in the last 1 or 2 years. And it's like, we know he's had a lot over his career, but if you go off recent history, it's not a ton. But Hartman, a lot of it's more recent. And yeah, everywhere I saw online, people were saying he should be getting anywhere from 10 to 20 games. So I really didn't see anybody mention, I think he should get like 6 or something. Like it seemed to start with double digits for most people, which I was surprised at because, we really don't see a lot of long suspensions like that very often. So,
well, and that's kind of why I'm not saying, oh, he should have gotten anywhere from 6 to 8, just kind of based on, the Department of Player Safety and kind of their history. I mean, admittedly, they have had a much better season this year. I think they've been a lot more on top of it. I think there's still inconsistencies.
There's work to be done, but it's definitely better than the last 4 years, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We are seeing a bit of an improvement. We are seeing them get back to, especially right in this instance, not afraid to throw the book at someone. I mean, it is a little bit easier for them to do that when they have, quite a bit of a history. And again, something like this that's not like, at least with I'm not going to say the Myers one, but if you want to include the Myers one, say that was kind of a retaliation for what McDavid did, that's fine. I'll agree with you. But even with like what McDavid did, what he did wasn't a hockey play at all. But it was in spirit of one. He was in a heated battle, and there was not much time left on the clock in a 1-goal game, and you're you're being held down. You're not allowed. You're not being given the ability to help your team try and tie the game. So what do? You
It's
whack
it's
a guy.
it's
It
not
was
a
a
good
dumb
thing to
play,
do,
but
but you can see why he did it. There was a at least a bit of a reason it felt like in the play, for
exactly.
him to do it, even if it
There
was
was a little
wrong.
bit of a build up, and I didn't watch this entire game. I kind of caught little bits and pieces throughout the night of this Minnesota Ottawa game. So like, if there was stuff kind of going on earlier, um, off a face off, and to do something like this, you can't justify it in any way. Like, it is a blatant attempt to injure. It is not the result of any kind of hockey play. It is just a player just doing what he can to try and hurt someone. And when you do that, you 100% deserve to have the book thrown at you.
It's
I'm okay with
funny.
10 games. If it was more, okay, cool. But I think 10 games is fine.
Yeah, for
And
the
like
precedent
we
that's
said,
been
I don't
set,
expect
10
it
feels
to.
good.
I do not expect this to go down whatsoever after this appeal.
No.
I think the league is going to be very firm, and you can quickly just reject it right away and just be like, you
People
know
are
what,
loving the
he,
10-game suspension. Like, every fans
yeah,
all over the league are saying, like, kudos for finally doing a good job. I don't know why they'd throw it away by reducing the sentence that they themselves gave out. Like, it
exactly right.
and
Like,
it's very funny that you mentioned. Oh, by the way, that's like $480,000 or something that Hartman is gonna forfeit due to lost
yeah,
wages for not playing those 10 games. So,
yeah.
it's a lot more than 5,000, the maximum allowable under the CBA. But it's very funny you mentioned that this one, it has nothing to do with Stutzel himself, or it wasn't a hockey play, because that's exactly the reasoning of why it happened that I believe it was Kevin Bieksa gave on the Sports Center panel, either in between periods or after the game, which all three members of the rest of the panel of the entire four disagreed with him pretty straight away, which was good to see because a lot of those guys often do not have the best takes. Um, but I can't remember who it was, but Ryan Hartman uh, got into a bit of a scuffle with another dude who is uh, on the I think it was Hamonic on the Senators, and uh, Hartman wanted to go, and Hamonic said no, we're not going to fight, and Bieksa pointed to that, and this happened like a period earlier, like a full period earlier, not recent during that play or anything, and Bieksa highlighted this and said, hey, look at this right here. If Hamonic just stands up and fights Hartman, this doesn't happen to Stutzel. And that these guys have to know that if a guy wants to fight you, if you don't fight, he might come after your star players. And is that the thinking that Hartman had? I don't know. If he already fought, maybe he doesn't do that. Should it be? But he said Hamonic might feel a little guilty after the game about this happening to Stutzel. Absolutely not, dude. Come
It,
on.
I think it depends. Like, because again, like I said, I only caught bits and pieces. So the game, I didn't get the luxury of watching the entire game. It would depend on what the premise was. Like, did Hamonic do something
There was no big
to
hit. There was no
a
dirty stuff. It was like it was mostly like, you know, two guys who, will fight. They're kind of those disturber guys, just behind the play, one of them took a hit that was, maybe followed through a little bit extra. There was a little extra yapping coming out of the zone. They're both behind the play, but like there was nothing big. The crowd's not looking over like, oh, like it was just kind of a thing. You see it at least 3 or 4 times a game usually. So the idea that, you know, he got he got damn near pile drove onto the ice because a guy wouldn't fight. Like, guys turn down that fight constantly, and guys also take that fight constantly. But like, so it's such a common thing. It's just there's no way you can really say like this had such a thing to it. And the way BXA brought it up was like, I get that as a a reasoning, even if it's a horrendous reasoning for Hartman to do it. But the way he said, like, I wonder if Hamonic feels guilty about it. It's like this happened like 35 minutes later, and it was such an inconsequential thing. It just happened to involve the same meathead. Like that, the idea that he should feel bad about it is
I don't
just
think he's
ludicrous
implying
to
that
me.
he should feel bad. I think it's more of like a kind of does he? Like kind of, you look back at it after the fact. You're like, you
Yeah,
know what? Maybe if I did just drop the gloves with him, maybe he doesn't do this, right? It's kind of a would he have, wouldn't he have type. Like I don't think it was the
yeah,
basis of
but
like Hamonic should feel bad. It's just kind of like I wonder if he does, maybe.
yeah,
Because
I
in
I
all
hope
honesty,
he
it
doesn't
probably is
because
avoidable if he does fight Hartman. Like again, like I'm not putting the blame on Hamonic, but I'm saying usually from what we see,
I
if a
mean,
guy like Hartman, like there's numerous players like Hartman.
yeah,
If you just drop the gloves with them, it's almost kind of similar to what we discussed previously with what and again different because there was an injury involved, but with what um LaRue did when he injured Spurgeon, and we are talking about like next time you play Minnesota, you got to go out there and just drop the gloves. You like that's what you got to do. If you don't, and you just say no, I'm not going to fight you and skate away, either they're going to be taking runs at you, they're going to be taking runs at your star players, like. Obviously, again, different situation because there was an injury involved, but it's kind of that basis, right? Like he
yeah.
dropped the gloves, and then yeah, there's a couple other fights here and there throughout the game. We love that, but there wasn't the guys taking runs at each other, trying to deliver cheap shots. It's so again, like should Hamonic feel bad? No. Does he? Maybe, maybe that's kind of in the back of his head. Like, and
I
thankfully
hope he,
Stutzel was okay.
yeah.
Ended up finishing the game and whatnot. So I doubt he feels like that bad. If
I
Stutzel
d-
got seriously injured, then he's probably like, "Fuck
yeah.
yeah, probably should have
Well,
just dropped the gloves."
I just hope
But
he wouldn't. Even if he got injured, I would hope that he doesn't feel bad because it is not on the players to fight every dude who takes exception to every little rub out against the boards because these guys are loose cannons, and if I don't fight everyone who asks ever, they're just going to injure my top players. It, could he have literally prevented it? Perhaps, but it's like it's not because that had anything to do with it. It's more of like it's more of like a time traveler being like, I could prevent it by this completely different thing where I let him take his anger out on my face. Like
mhm,
it literally could have prevented it, but yeah, I don't think. I just think they were so disconnected that, and above all else, Hartman wasn't out there making, he's not making a big booming hit to stick it to the other team. That was a nasty cheap shot.
it,
So
it, it was a blatant attempt to injure, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah,
And props to
yeah,
the ref during the game saying that. I don't remember the last time I've seen a couple guys suspended for attempt to injure. I don't remember the last time I saw the refs during the game label the penalty as attempt to injure. I don't know if I've ever seen it, to be honest. Like even some blatant high sticks, like
well, because what would you
Jesus,
call
was
that
it
though?
was it
Like
was
you
it
can't call
Hartman?
that interference. You can't call that.
I
We did talk. Hartman
if
is
it
the
was
one
some
like
other refs,
cross
I
checked
if it was some other refs,
whatever
they
last
might
season.
call it roughing, a 5 minute major for roughing. Like I I could definitely see that. Like there's some times where guys have been high sticked, like blatant as day, like it's attempt to injure, and they just call it high sticking and they give him a misconduct and
But
kick
that
him
one's
out. Like
easy. Like that's it's tough to call that one. I mean, you can call it roughing, but because it has happened before. There has it's not very like common, but there has been a few instances where the refs just label it as intent to injure, give him a match penalty because it's
yeah,
like
I just
it's not even
I
the
love the call.
basis of a regular penalty really. Like yeah, you
Yeah,
could give that roughing, but it's not even roughing again. Like it's literally just a straight up attempt to injure.
yeah,
Like it wasn't like the high stick he did last year. It wasn't a you hit a guy from behind,
yeah.
checking from behind. It's not
Well,
a cross check to the face
the high
type of
stick
thing.
the high stick could have been an attempt to injure as well, because I guess you could say at least for that what he was trying to win the face off more. But like,
But you can also just say high stick though.
yeah,
At least with that one, you kind of have a bit of an out, being like, yeah,
there's
this is an
there's
actual
so
basis
many
for a high stick.
there's so many penalties in hockey that pretty much anything happens, you can label it as something. Like the amount of
But
times
this one,
that
like, it's just like you said, it was a fucking
it was just
pedigree, basically, just driving a
like
guy's head into the ice. So
he's gonna. I was worried he was gonna show up in the Royal Rumble after that. Like,
yeah, Royal
like
Rumble was taking place at the exact same time.
yeah, and they're lucky in Indianapolis that he wasn't there. He's going into business for himself. But
But we should move on from Ryan Hartman and his scumbag antics. Unfortunately, Minnesota does not play Ottawa again this year. So
uh,
whenever the next schedule comes out for the next season, mark down that first Minnesota Ottawa game, as I'm sure there will be a decent amount of fireworks
yeah.
um,
Well, one last thing I
going
want to
around.
throw in. I haven't seen a single Minnesota fan uh defend this at all. Like not
Well,
even like
because
not
you
even
don't
a
have a
half
leg to
defense.
stand on, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all of them are
There's no
saying
way you can.
it's a gutless play by him, and so many of them are so pissed off with Ryan Hartman because from what Wild fans have been saying, uh he used to be really good, like top 6 scorer, and the scoring's just disappeared in the last 2 years. And in those last 2 years, like you said, 4 suspensions. Like looking up his stats.
He
Yeah.
and
So
again, not. Oh, sorry. Do you have his numbers?
yeah, I just brought him up. So it looks like
Okay.
he was a career called a 30-point guy. He never really played. He's only played one 82 game season. So adjust for points per game. 30 to 40-point guy in 21-22. He did play all 82 in that year. 34 goals, 65 points. The next year, only 59 games. 37 points in 59 ain't bad. Last year, it dipped down to 45 and 74. So the points were more, but the points per game was a good bit lower. And then this year, 17 and 48. And that's with the Minnesota Wild being better than I remember them ever looking.
Hmm.
This is also the first year he's been a minus since he played on the Flyers in 18-19, and he's a -8.
And I mean, not to give Hartman a pass for what he did, but I do think that there is because I mean, at the end of the day, um, unless you're a sicko going out there, and there's a few in the league. Don't get me wrong, but like unless you're a sicko, no one wants to go out there and just get their face punched every night. They don't want to be dealing with cross checks in the face and the back and whatnot. So
No,
again, like not justifying what Hartman did, but I always do give respect to those players that at one point were an effective player, were a good player, like a goal scorer, a point getter in the league.
a Corey
And
Perry.
as the game gets faster, they kind of have to adjust their game. They kind of have to realize, like, all right, I'm not the 30 goal guy, the 50-ish point guy that I once was. I kind of got to adjust my game. Does it justify for the actions he's doing, the suspensions? No. But I always do kind of give respect to those players that are
The guys
able
who
to
can
kind of
stay
realize,
relevant.
like, yeah, if I want to stay in the league, I have to change my game. I have to become this kind of player. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean go out there and just get suspended, because it doesn't help your team when you're getting suspended. Minnesota's a more effective team, especially with the amount of injuries they have. They're more effective with Hartman in the lineup. So, but
Yeah.
again, I do kind of give him a little bit of respect for being like, all right, you've kind of come to terms that you're not the guy you once were, and you kind of had to adapt to be a regular in the lineup, not just become maybe a
Yeah.
fourth line plugger or an in and out of the lineup type of guy. But
Yeah. You just want to see him transition more towards a Corey Perry shit disturber, more so than like a Nick Cousins disturber,
see, but we
because
say
those
that we
two
say
roles are
Corey
very
Perry now,
different.
but Corey Perry went through a bad stretch. So, like, maybe that's the path Reinhardt's on.
I
Maybe this is kind of his bad low
Yeah,
stretch, and
I'm saying Corey Perry when he's not getting suspended for stuff. He's been pretty clean for the last 2 or 3 years. Not necessarily entirely clean play, but like nothing like this.
mhm. I'm saying, like, maybe that's Ryan Hartman's in his low Corey Perry phase where
Yeah.
he's trying to figure out how to kind of play this new role that he's taken on and do it properly.
Well,
And
sus-
obviously, driving a guy's head into the ice is not the way to
yeah.
go about it.
And
Obviously,
suspensions getting tougher and tougher on the players as it looks right now. And he's got a lot recently. He's got to play clean at least for the rest of this season. If he does anything even half as bad as this, those suspension numbers are going up.
I
Like,
think it's 18 months.
Like him and Rempe
And then you're
both
not a repeat
can't
offender.
afford him and Rempe both cannot afford anything the rest of the year.
Difference is one's a hockey player, one's not. So
Yeah.
take that for what it's worth. But speaking of the Rangers, quickly fly through this one. Jonathan Quick, goaltender for New York Rangers, three-time Stanley Cup champion, recorded career win number 400 the other night, and in doing so, he became the first American-born goaltender to record 400 career wins in the NHL. You know, people debated about it before. I was always on the side that he's a lock. I don't think there's any doubt that Jonathan Quick is for sure a lock for the Hall of Fame now at this point.
Yeah. Depending on the year he goes in, I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And I don't
I
think he has to. I don't think he has
No.
to be.
I think, yeah, you either see people online saying, either they're a first ballot Hall of Famer or we just don't know. And it's like he could go in on the first ballot, but like he's not a Crosby. Crosby is guaranteed to go in. Hell, if Crosby keeps playing, they might just waive him having to retire and they'll put him in the Hall anyway. But Quick, he is getting in. He's got that Conn Smythe, one of the best goaltending performances in the playoffs we've ever seen. 2 cups, 400
Three.
wins, only American goaltender do it. 3 cups, you're right. They do
Shout out
not.
to Columbus for that.
Yeah, on Hockey DB, they do not have that listed on here. They don't actually list the cups in the awards section. They just have the little cup logo beside the team name. And the Vegas Golden Knights written out is so long that it takes up the entire team part. So it doesn't fit the little trophy. But
It would still be
yeah,
on there. I think it's not there because technically he didn't qualify.
he
So
did. I mean, he
he'll
did
get a
technically
he'll get a
qualify, but
ring. Like he got to lift the cup, he'll get a ring, but I don't believe his name actually went
it,
on the
it
cup.
would be. He was the backup, wasn't he?
I don't think so.
Well, I guess it's
I
Vegas.
think by
I
the
guess
time
it's
it
Vegas.
came
Did
down
they have
to it, I
Logan
don't.
Thompson?
They had Logan Thompson, Aiden Hill, Laurent Brossois.
Vegas, you cowards. You were up like 7-3 in the final game. You couldn't rotate some goalies out for the final 10 seconds.
Brossois came in for 8 playoff games.
God
People are trying
damn.
to tell me Aiden Hill should have gotten the Conn Smythe.
I was gonna say, how is
Tough
he
to get
getting
a
so much
Conn Smythe when you got pulled 8 games.
I was gonna say. Wow.
Yeah, Logan Thompson. Logan
Huh.
Thompson doesn't have it beside his, but like he played 40. What year is that?
22, 23.
22, 23. Yeah, why is Logan Thompson? Yeah, Logan Thompson doesn't even have. He played 37. I feel like that's enough for a goalie.
I'm pretty sure they got their names on there. I think it's just on not displaying on Hockey DB.
Maybe.
Because it's a team award, so they don't have it listed at the bottom under their like individual accolades. But
Oh, yep. Jonathan Quick did. So they had 4 goaltenders get their name on there.
hell yeah, man. I mean, makes sense. They had a lot of goalies play for them that year. Like, no, but we did not
Yeah.
know who the starter was going into the playoffs. We knew afterwards, but if I Google names on the Stanley Cup, can I just see the whole thing? Can they give me like an interactive thing where I can click to spin it around?
I would have no clue for that.
That
Um,
that would mean the NHL would have to make a functioning website and stuff.
yeah. Which long way away from that.
Yeah, almost there.
If you go on to NHL.com, it's probably one of the top headlines. The Vancouver Canucks signed recently acquired defenseman Marcus Pettersson to a 6-year, $5.5 million extension. This is a great deal, especially with the cap going up. This is a fantastic deal. Like a player of his caliber for only 5.5.
This
Like
this does
a
huge.
great second pair guy
So
making that little.
we talked about last episode. Basically, all we talked about was the 4 huge trades that went on around the league. And like I said in that episode, I was not really at all a fan of the Vancouver Rangers trade, but Vancouver, Pittsburgh, that took place right after, the centerpiece in that for going to Pittsburgh was that first from the Rangers. And I do not like the Vancouver trade that involved JT Miller. I love the trade that they made for that first rounder, getting Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor back. And this extension is gonna help define the Vancouver side of that trade tree for the foreseeable future. And I think they're gonna get great value out of Pettersson. The cap is going up as well. Like we keep saying it, but like 5.5 AAV, that's supposed to be around 60% of the amount the cap is going up. So like if their contract situation were to stay the same, they would still be gaining cap on top of a solid top 6 4 or a top 4 defenseman. So like I absolutely love this for the Canucks. Obviously, 5.5 for 6 years, that locks in 30-ish million for Marcus Pettersson. Like this seems like a great deal on both sides.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I think this is exactly what um it's exactly what Vancouver needed. Again, when we talked about the Canucks a lot, it was they desperately need defensive help, more on the right side than the left side. But um, again, having a guy like Marcus Pettersson who can log big minutes, like you're getting you're paying 5.5 as of next season for the next 6 years for a defenseman that you can realistically put in all situations. You can get 28 minutes a night out of him if need be. He's going to be one of the best second, because obviously he's going to continue to be behind Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
That is one of the best second pair defensemen that there's going to be in the league. And for 5.5, you got to be absolutely pumped if you're a member of the Canucks or if you're a Vancouver fan that you've got Pettersson on a great deal like that. So
And also, they don't have him for 8. They didn't get it for 7. They got it for 6, which by that point, Marcus Pettersson will be 34. Like we see a lot of these guys to get that discounted rate that would, I would say 5.5 is a pretty good discount for them. Often you're having to pay these guys till they're 36, 37, but it's only till he's 34. So, they they aren't handcuffing themselves in the future on the back end of this deal. Like it's probably going to be good all the way through. Maybe he falls off in the final 2 years,
and if he
but
does, there's no clause on the contract.
yeah, and it's
So
five
they
point
can
five, so it's not a
move
huge
him
anchor.
whenever he wants. So if things go south for the Canucks and worst comes to worst, you got to blow everything up and rebuild. You can easily move Pettersson. You don't even have to ask
Yeah,
him or
very movable contract.
ask or talk to specific teams. You have free reign to do what you want. So
Yeah, he doesn't have to go to the Rangers. You can send him wherever.
yeah,
But he's also not going to want to go anywhere because they've got this such a special thing in Vancouver in that um, they had the Sedins for the better part of 15 years, and they they are just like the heroes to so many of these Swedish players that they just over the years have attracted so many more Swedish players to wanting to come play for the team, and eventually both the Sedins obviously get hired in executive roles with the team, and like I think they're still feeling that to this day. I still think I'm not saying Marcus Pettersson was like specifically pumped to go there because of that, but I doubt it hurt.
yeah,
Like
it definitely can't hurt for sure.
I think that's a thing that helps a lot of Swedish players specifically, and just players in general, like get really excited about going to Vancouver and working with the team.
Hmm.
Like guys like Pettersson, like Pettersson, Elias Pettersson, the forward one. Like I imagine, like he's been in their ear most of his career, like that he's been there, just asking them questions, learning stuff. Like who better to learn from than two Hall of Famers?
Exactly. There's not many better guys you can learn from, and having that access to players of that caliber, of that prestige, is is not easy. That's not a common thing amongst every team. So to not only have one but two of them, that's huge for Vancouver. And yeah, that is definitely a huge little chip in their pocket that they have when it comes to acquiring different Swedish players. But
But
moving on from the Canucks that are out west, let's go over to the east. Let's chat a bit about this playoff race we're seeing as it's really starting to heat up. It's over in the west, not really as much. Winnipeg still, is quite a bit above the rest of the group. Vegas is on a slide. Really, that final wild card spot looks like it's going to come down to probably Calgary or Vancouver, so we'll keep an eye on that. But not a lot of craziness going on in the West, but the East is really really heating up with a lot of teams here all in the mix.
yeah, it's an absolute bloodbath in the middle of the East, and the Atlantic and the Metro are just they've got so many fringe teams that are trying to claw their way in, and they just can't beat each other out. Like it's just insane to watch. And we finally have a couple of teams that we figure maybe these teams are finally out of it. Obviously the Sabres fell out pretty early in the year, and the Islanders were so far back. Well, the Islanders are 8-2-0 in their last 10, and all of a sudden they have 57 points on the year. Like it's so close that no teams are really being counted out. Yeah, those Islanders, they're only 3 points out at this point. The Rangers are only 4 out. The season looked like a foregone conclusion for them for the longest time there. But
Yeah.
as it stands right now, the Atlantic goes Panthers, Maple Leafs, Senators at 67, 66, and 62 points. So only 5 points separating the first and the third team there. The Metro is Washington, Carolina, and New Jersey. That's at 77, 68, and 66 points. So 11 points separating them, a bit more. Washington's really pulled ahead in the East. And then in the wild card, you have the Red Wings and the Lightning currently at 61 and 60 points. The Bruins also have 60 points. They're currently wild card 3. And then Blue Jackets 59, Islanders 57, Rangers 56, Canadians 55. Penguins, Flyers, Sabres are a bit lower. I don't expect any of them to come back, but Sabres currently on a 4-game win streak, so who knows?
But Buffalo ain't coming back.
No, I think we both know
But
that.
Buffalo ain't coming back. They shot themselves in the foot. It's a close race. Now, I will say, as much as it sucks, because out of the teams that are currently out of wild card spot, the teams that I would like to see jump up would be Columbus and the Islanders. I think both teams are now kind of destined to fall down, and that really just comes down to injuries. Like for Columbus, Zach Werenski is day to day. It sounds like he will be coming back tonight, but you are looking at the foreseeable future for the next at least month without your two best forwards, that being Sean Monahan and Kirill Marchenko, both of them out. That really kills the team right there. I think they're still going to be somewhat competitive, but I just don't see a world in which they can get into a playoff spot and hold it down without your two best forwards. Like that's just a tough mountain to climb.
It's tough for any team. Like
with the Islanders, again, we've talked about them. They brought in a lot of defensemen help, all of which who have actually been really great for them. I think they've all looked fantastic. But again, now it's looking like Matt Barzal could just potentially be done for the entire season. It's unknown, but he is out indefinitely, and that's a big loss for them. And I think that's kind of best case scenario for the Islanders, because I think it then allows you to capitalize on the value of some of your players on expiring deals and puts you in a better spot to do a quick retool rather than try to make the playoffs and then claw your way through being the underdog the whole way. I think it's better to just try and do a quick little retool, and hopefully you can have a healthy team next year. But Rangers are on a roll with JT Miller. David Pastrnak is single-handedly carrying a dead weight Boston Bruins team.
And my fantasy team.
Yeah.
Like
Tampa's doing their thing, and then Detroit and Ottawa are not slowing down. They continue to
Detroit's on a
um
7-game win streak. Like
yeah.
they've shot up. Their season looked kind of cooked about 7 games ago. And yeah, like dude, the Senators have, I swear, like they've probably had 2 separate 6-game win streaks and 6-game loss streaks. They just go on an absolute tear. They get up into the divisional spot and then they drop all the way out of the playoffs and then they just do it again.
Yeah.
Like it's it's absolutely insane watching these teams all leapfrog each other just constantly. Like I have no idea how it's going to shake out. Like Tampa's got that top end play. They've got the top end players on forwards, defense, and in net, but the depth is really lacking in a lot of areas. And there's just so many good teams that might be the difference this year. The Red Wings, like they're really have the Red Wings made the playoffs since like what 2017?
I can't remember last time they were in the play. It's been a while.
I'll see if I can find some.
It's been what feels like a never-ending rebuild. Like when you look at the East, there's really only a couple teams that you look and you're like, all right, they're going to be in the playoffs, and that's really the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes are kind of the 4 teams that I'm like they're for sure going to be in the playoffs. New Jersey probably, but team's been kind of sliding lately, and without Jacob Markstrom, it exposes a lot of weaknesses on that team that they haven't addressed. I'm pretty comfortable with them making the playoffs because, again, you are, what are you right now? You're 7 points up on Columbus. Again, I don't expect Columbus to leapfrog New Jersey. Same thing with the Islanders, 9 points there. But you've got a 10-point gap on the New York Rangers, which, even if the Rangers get hot, I don't think New Jersey slides enough for the Rangers to overtake them. Could happen, but I don't see it. But again, it is always a possibility.
Yeah, I mean the Rangers are 6-3-1 in their last 10. Devils are 4-4-2. So it's not trending well for them. But
Yeah, like it very well could happen,
yeah,
but
honestly, like, and
it depends
I
on when Markstrom comes back for
yeah, that's true.
New Jersey.
The teams that you said that are like guaranteed to be in, pretty much, like, if I'm honest, like it's so close. Like I expect the Panthers, the Leafs, the Hurricanes to make it. I definitely expect that. The only one I would really feel comfortable guaranteeing is Washington. That's an insane thing to say.
Washington
I would have thought I was insane
is a lock
saying that in
Yeah.
February. Like, if you asked
I
me
don't
before the
realistically see
season,
Florida or Toronto falling out, though. I can't see a world in which
I don't realistically.
Florida and Toronto miss the playoffs, and your top teams in the Atlantic is Detroit, Ottawa, Tampa.
You see, I don't foresee that, but they are 7 points from falling out of the playoffs entirely. From losing top of the Atlantic all the way to being below Boston in wildcard 3.
But
there's
those
only
are two
7
teams
points.
that are going to be making some big additions at the deadline. Whereas when I look at Ottawa, I
expect them to be there. I just going as far as to say, like, we basically, like, Winnipeg, we know they're making the playoffs. It's not they probably will. Washington, at this point, we know they're like 20 points in the playoffs.
I'm confident enough to say that I know that Florida and Toronto are gonna.
We pretty much know, but like, all it takes is a 5-game losing streak, a 5-game winning streak.
It's not pretty much, like they are.
All right.
Because I don't see because Florida and Toronto have cup aspirations.
Yeah.
Like, not to say teams like Ottawa and Detroit don't, but they're more realistic. They know that, like, the goal is to just make the playoffs. Literally just be a part of it, not just sitting at home watching. So for them, like, yeah, maybe they'll make a couple additions, but like if there's bigger names out there, it's going to be like I expect. I don't know if Washington would. I don't know if you mess with what you got going on, honestly. But like for Florida and Toronto, you know that they're going to be going out and they're going to be getting these bigger pieces. Toronto's finally getting healthy goaltending again, which has been a part of why they're maybe not where they would hope to be. They're finally just getting a healthy team again. Florida, I mean, yeah, like they're just going to find a way to get in. What do they win the division? I don't know. I think that's up for anyone to take. Um,
Yeah.
Carolina, even man, like
And they just added
are they
Rantanen.
just are they just well? And that's the thing, right? Like, what's you think about one of the big kind of not even trade deadline, but like mid-season trades when a top team in their division makes it. One of the most recent that I can think of is when the Arizona Coyotes were top of were they Pacific Division at the time, or were they over to Central?
You said Coyotes at the top and you lost me.
Yeah, it was the year when the Coyotes were doing really good. I think it was like mid-December or something when they traded for Taylor Hall, and then team still ended up making the playoffs because that was kind of the first COVID bubble year. So basically everybody got in. But bringing Taylor Hall hurt them. And you look at Carolina, you know, you've lost your last two. You beat the Rangers and you beat Chicago, so that really doesn't count. Rantanen only 2 points in 5 games. That makes you wonder if sometimes like you just
How has he only played 5, man?
yeah.
They have not had a lot of games. They've got like 3 days between in between almost every game they've had since the Rantanen trade.
Yeah. That seems to be the way with a lot of teams. A lot of teams it's like games very kind of scattered all over the place leading up to the Four Nations. And then even afterwards, there's a couple teams that only play like 2 games in 10 days or something following the Four Nation. And that's not even like the team's kind of like bye week. That's just random stretches of nothing in the schedule.
Yeah.
If you had to, like, how do you see the playoffs shaping up? Like, if we're going all the way fast forward to the end of the season, who do you think is in the playoffs and who's out?
If I had to guess, I would put for the East, I would definitely have Florida and Toronto in there. I'm gonna put Tampa in there. I think they pick it up. For the Metro, I'm going Capitals. I'm going Hurricanes, and I will put the Devils in there. And then for the wild card, I don't quite think it's Detroit's year. Too much other stuff is heating up. And I think Boston probably falls out this year. I think the two wild card spots
Boston, I'm
go
pretty
to
comfortable that they miss. Like Pasternak, if he has an off night, you're not winning that game.
yeah.
Like you can't expect him to be on and carrying the team however many games they have left, like 20, 26 or some 25. Like it's just not doable.
Yeah, they've also played 56 games. All these other teams 54, 53, 53, 52. They've got a lot less chances to pick it up. I think the wild
Yeah.
card spots go to Ottawa and the Rangers.
I don't hate that. I think the Rangers end up finding themselves they claw back in.
Yeah,
Ottawa and
even
Detroit, I
before
think
they
it's a
got Miller,
toss up.
I
You know,
thought they were gonna.
we kind of see teams go like especially Ottawa and Detroit, they kind of go on like hot streaks and then cold streaks.
Yeah, I could
Really,
definitely
it's
see
probably going to
Detroit.
come down to the end of the season who's on the cold streak and who's on the hot streak. Like it very well could be one of those things we saw last year where it comes down to the final day of the regular season and it's
It probably
you know
will. Like these
one
teams are
team
all
needs to
so
win to get in and then they need to rely on the other team to lose or the other way around. So
yeah.
I'm kind of leaning towards Detroit and Rangers.
I could definitely see it. Like any two of those three, I think is a really solid pick. The Sens, the Red Wings, and the Rangers. Like any two of them could get in there. Hell, like if you want to say any three of those three teams and the Lightning, really, like they're all right in the mix there. I could see any of them.
See, but again, even though Tampa's lower than them, I expect Tampa to be um big game hunters going into the deadline. I see them going out and acquiring more and making bigger moves than Detroit or Ottawa because again, Tampa's window is not as open, whereas the future is wide open and bright for Ottawa and Detroit. So it's like don't give up assets just to try to maybe go on a miracle run, right? Like just stay the course and you're only going to continue to get better. Whereas again, when you talk about teams like Tampa, Toronto, Florida, like it's win now mode. Like your window is right now. In 5 years, that very well might not be the case. So I think once Tampa makes some moves and they fill up on areas that they need help, especially in their bottom six,
Yeah.
I expect that to solve some problems for them, and that'll help them probably end the season comfortably in that third Atlantic spot.
Hey, your lips to God's ears, right? I'm hoping so. But
I expect them to. I don't think you can run that bottom six.
I think the Sens and the Red Wings, I think they're both going to buy pretty decent as well. Like these teams are sick of not being in the playoffs. I think they're going to do whatever it takes. It's within reach now, and I do.
Why would you, if you're in that spot for them, why would you be giving up your prospects and your picks when that's what you've been stocking up on for your future? Don't just give it away just to say, "Hey, we made the playoffs 1 year."
Well, I'll give you two reasons why. The Ottawa Senators, their last playoff appearance, 2016-17 season. That's a long time ago.
But again, do you sell off parts of your future? Just be like, hey, we made the playoffs just to get slapped around and be the Washington Capitals of this year. Like, hey, we made the playoffs, but we got swept. Like that doesn't. You're better off just missing the playoffs at that point.
I don't know if they see it. I don't know if they see it that way. I genuinely wonder what the fans think of it. Like, it's been 8 years since they've been in the playoffs. Do they care if they get bounced first round, or do they just want to make it?
I think realistically,
like you don't want to give off, like you don't sell Carter Yakimchuk for freaking Joe Schmo on your fourth line, right? But if you're giving up a couple of picks that are kind of whatever, probably not first, and you're picking up some
but that's
guys,
the thing though. That's what I'm saying.
potentially
Is like teams like Tampa, teams like Florida, Toronto, they're willing to do that. That's why they're going to get the better pieces.
Yeah.
And they're going to benefit greater from that as opposed to Detroit and Ottawa that maybe go out and grab a third pair defenseman or a fourth line winger or center or something. Like that's what I mean. Like I'm not saying they're not going to be buyers, but they're not going to be going after the Brock Nelsons that are going to be out there.
I don't think they should, but I wonder.
I don't know. There's a bunch of other guys
in on them. I wonder if they'll be in on a Brock Nelson, a Brock Besser, just for the idea of I got to get the owner off my back because we never make the playoffs.
But if your team's like that, you got to be expecting to give up either a really good prospect or B, a first round pick.
Yeah, and
like that's what you have to be willing to do. And
I wonder if
personally, if I'm a fan of one of those teams, I would rather just be like, you know what, we gave it a good run this year. We can see that we're so close. I'm okay missing the playoffs and holding on to either this good prospect or first round pick, especially in Ottawa's case when you still have to decide which first round pick you're giving up either this year or next year.
Yeah.
I would rather be like, just hold on to these pieces. Let's go into next year. Let's do a little bit of work at the draft and offseason as opposed to giving up something like that just to make the playoffs and then get swept. And then odds are you probably lose that piece that you brought in.
I get that perspective for a team like the Blue Jackets who have been in a deep rebuild for the last bit, but like the Red Wings, I mean, how many seasons in a row can they possibly say we were so close next year, right? Like they've said that for like 2-3 years in a row now.
Oh, they have a real NHL coach now, which is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
They waited a long time before actually getting a proper head coach behind the bench. No disrespect to Derek Lalonde, but also kind of disrespect to him because the evidence is right there. We can go through the evidence and justify it. So
great again, assistant coach. Not everyone's meant to be a head coach.
I think Ottawa and Detroit, they will be buyers, but they're just not. I don't expect them to be to the extent of these other teams that are like, your window is right now. Like I don't know how many years. That's maybe right. Florida. Tampa still got probably at least 5 years.
Honestly, Florida and Tampa have very annoyingly long windows. Like, I think both
Mhm.
of these teams are still gonna be in their current window in 8 years. Like,
Eh,
both teams have, like
I don't know about 8 years. That might be a bit of a
both teams have, like, 5 of their most 8 important players locked up for, like, at least 6 seasons. Like, it's a lot of the most important guys on both teams locked up to long, cheap deals. Obviously, there's big ones, like, if Vasilevsky walks, asks for too much money, anything, we're fucked. There's no way around that. But, like, you know, a lot of those other top players are locked in for a long time and annoyingly cheap in Florida specifically. Man,
but
that
you gotta
Verhage
remember in,
deal,
like,
crazy.
6 years or so, like, a lot of these guys are kind of in their prime or around that 30 age mark. Like, they're still gonna be good players, but when you get to the point in your if you're you can't be relying on your core, like, look at Pittsburgh, like, you can't be relying on your core to
Yeah.
be all 35 plus.
No, no, you can't go that far into it. I'm
Like,
I'm thinking
at
more.
that point, for the most part, like, I would give maybe a pass to guys like, for Florida, like Barkov. Kachuk will probably still be doing his thing. But, like, for Tampa, like, a guy like Nikita Kucherov,
Yeah.
he's
It
still gonna
it
be a great player, but he's not made probably not a guy that you necessarily build the team around, expect him to carry
no.
the the
Not
weight
at
that he currently is type of
no.
thing.
No, not at that point. Yeah, it's really Vasilevsky, Kucherov, and Hedman are the really core pieces that will age out during that time. But and we won't be like top contenders at that point without trying to replace them, but or at least bring in guys who can, take on those roles. But, having 6 years on point, 7 on Gensel, 8 on Hagel, 7 on Sorelli, you know, hopefully we get a nice Moser extension this offseason. Like a lot of guys like that are
But
what's
in
going to help
6
this
years,
team
is
be
that a core
competitive.
that, you know I get what you're saying, like, they'll still be in the fight, but they definitely at that point won't be like, a favorite every year, or like a team that you're
No,
like, "Yeah, you know what? If they make the playoffs, like, fuck, I don't wanna go up against them," type of thing.
No, but even, even the Detroit Red Wings going on their like 25-year playoff streak, they stayed in the playoffs. They weren't a top threat every 25 of those years. They would have 4 or 5 years of absolute dominance. They would sneak in the playoffs for a while, then they'd build it back up. They're dominant again. It would go back down. They would stave off the rebuild while not completely falling off. And I think it might look something more like that. And
It
same
very well
exact thing in
could, yeah.
Florida. Same exact thing in Florida because the Panthers also have done incredibly tidy work with their cap situation. Like Sam
And those are
Reinhart, 8
desirable
years at
markets.
yeah, like
Like, they're in the
8.6
area of,
mil
like, the
for 8 years. Sam
yeah.
Reinhart, are you kidding me? Dude just scored 57 goals. Like
Yeah,
that's
they're in that
ludicrous.
area, which is kinda why I'm like, I can kinda see it, like, Florida, Tampa, Rangers, Vegas, like, they kind of have that luxury of being a more desirable market for players, and players trying to force their way there, and especially with the cap going up,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
it
certainly not
definitely
Winnipeg.
makes it,
Like,
easier for them. But, like, in a couple years, I think Montreal is gonna be one of the top teams. Buffalo,
yeah.
honestly, just fucking relocate. Like,
They need to sell the
why not?
team.
Literally just go to Arizona, please. Just give
They
us the Coyotes back.
they just need like a new owner. They need all new staff. Just I remember we looked at it quite a few months ago at this point, but I was shocked at how many of their organization have been there since like 2008 or something. Like it's like all their top like presidents and stuff like that. Like
Buffalo
they have so many
could
guys who all they know is losing. Like they don't have really any winners in
the team could
in the org.
relocate to Arizona, and in this offseason, Buffalo could get a brand new expansion team and would make the playoffs sooner than what they than if they just keep going with what's going on there.
Yeah.
You could start literally from scratch, bare bones, and have a better chance of just making the playoffs than trying to make it work with what's there right now.
Yeah,
Although it
and
sounds like they're going to be blowing some stuff up at the deadline. Sounds like they're going to be the team that's kind of in the mix of a lot of stuff come the deadline. So I'm very excited to see how that kind of goes for them and who's staying, who's going to be going out the door.
who is the coach? Is it Lindy Ruff in Buffalo?
Yeah.
So there's something I didn't like, and then a reaction that I did like. Um, I don't know if you saw it, but Tage Thompson took a nasty headshot in one of their recent games. I can't remember who hit him or even which team it was, but
Stefan Nason.
it was
Oh, New
Nason,
Jersey.
and he got the shoulder up, hit Thompson in the head. Have to get up pretty high to hit a guy like that in the head, and just brained him. Thompson goes down. He's not really moving on the ice, not knocked out cold, but he was down for a good bit. And you've got 4 Sabres just fucking standing there staring into space. They just didn't do shit. And that I watched that clip, and like all the comments, nobody was talking about the hit. Everyone was talking about how the fuck do you all just stand there doing nothing? This is Buffalo's problem. They will not go to war. Could you imagine if this team did make the playoffs? What the fuck would they do? What
The team's soft. Like you
a
look
guy
at it.
runs your goalie and y'all just stand there? This playoff hockey sure doesn't fit me. Like it blows my mind. He's a
look
star
up and down
player
the
for them
team.
too.
Look up and down the team. JJ Peterka, he ain't gonna fight. Rasmus Dahlin wouldn't ever dream of dropping the mitts. Alex Tuck, maybe. I could see it, but again, like you probably
Yeah.
don't want your best player in Alex Tuck dropping the mitts. Jason Zucker, actually, he probably would. Owen Power, this monster, and he plays like he's 5'2". Bowen Byram, you can't let him fight. Like if I'm the coach, you tell him you fight, you're a healthy scratch for the next month because that's just putting his career at risk. Ryan McLeod, maybe. Dylan Cousins, but
Even if it's
he
not a
wouldn't
fight,
stand.
anything, yell fuck you at their bench. Go do just everyone grab their guy. It happens every time a scuffle breaks out. Everyone go put one hand on a jersey and lean your head back and do nothing. Anything. They just stared at him and he skated off the ice. Like any emotion.
Like you're the Buffalo Sabres.
If I was the goalie out there, I would have gone and
fight.
I would have gone and fought the other goalie if I was the goalie out there. I would have been so embarrassed for my team doing nothing. I would have started a goalie fight. Like that was so bad to watch. But
it's a soft, weak team.
Luckily, Lindy Ruff saw the same thing I did. And the next game that they had, 20 minutes left in the first period, puck drop, boom, fight. Immediately. I'll have to look up who fought for the Sabres, but
it was Dennis Gilbert.
It's Dennis Gilbert, so it wasn't one of their top
he
guys.
Also he wasn't even in the lineup against New Jersey. Oh no, he was. Yeah, and he didn't do shit. That's the thing though with Buffalo, though. Like, who cares? That doesn't solve anything. Sending out your goon the very next game, being like, "Hey, go out there and fight." Like,
it would have meant more
because
if it was Alex Tuck. It would have meant more if it was one of their core guys. Like,
it wouldn't have meant shit.
It would have.
What does a meaningless fight against a random team the next game do? Like,
I'm talking after they've already done nothing in that one. Obviously, the best thing would have been to do something about the guy who just brained one of your best players. But
a meaningless fight doesn't do you anything the next game. It's just like, okay, hey, Dennis Gilbert will fight.
At the very least, it sends a message to the rest of the league that we can fight back.
Well, Dennis Gilbert can fight back.
Well, that's why I'm saying one of their other guys.
4 players on. I don't know the 4 players that were on the ice when Tage Thompson got injured, but if you're watching those guys and you see them out there, you've got the green light to do whatever because
those 4 guys. Yeah, those 4 guys, like that's a blemish. Like a lot of guys.
I have the video.
Like,
I wonder if I can make out who's on the ice.
Like
probably not.
Like it's actually really rough, man. Like they just needed to do something.
Lindy Ruff?
They didn't even look like they didn't even look
pissed
Yuri Kulich,
off,
man.
Yeah, he'll never fight in his career.
And again,
Jason Zucker, that's kind of surprising. Matthias Samuelsson, and Owen Power.
Like You don't even have to drop the mitts and fight, but go over and fucking shove the guy. Put your glove in his face. Like,
No, if your
look,
star player gets headshot, you fight.
yeah,
Anyone
but
on Edmonton would do
even
it if it happened to McDavid. Anyone on Toronto would if it happens to Matthews. Same thing with McKinnon McCarr on Colorado. Like, you
but even
protect your star players.
yeah, but even if you're not willing to do that, even if it's a Zach Benson out there, it's like an 18, 19-year-old and they're 5'8". Like, even if you just go over and just push the guy. You like that anything. Like, they looked so weak just standing there that it just it was just wild, man. Like
Especially when
that
you're Buffalo, like without Tage Thompson, in my opinion, and
we've
again,
seen
my
we've
opinion
seen
doesn't hold.
minor league
Um,
teams show more heart. Like it's insane.
yeah, and like this is Tage Thompson for Buffalo. Like without Tage Thompson, I genuinely think Buffalo is the worst team in the league. I think I would honestly say Chicago and San Jose are better than them. The vibes in
Uh
Buffalo are just
I don't know
are
if I put
just
them that
terrible.
low, but it's pretty it's pretty
I
low.
would because all San Jose and Chicago got to do is hey, go out there and play physical, play hard. Buffalo rolls over. Like the identity of that team
Without Darlene,
is just
100%.
so bad.
It's
It is just terrible there. Like again,
yeah.
two of the guys I mentioned, Jason Zucker, he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up, drop the mitts. Owen Power is a absolute monster out there,
Yeah. He
and he
could win a
doesn't do
fight without
anything.
throwing a punch. Just
Yeah,
fucking
he could just
throttle him back and
ragdoll you
forth and
around.
push him to the ice. Like
Yeah,
yeah. Like hell, if you're that
just a
afraid
bad
of
team, man.
Stefan Nason, go grab I don't even care, man. Go grab the shortest of the 5 guys that they have on the ice and push him to the ground to make a point. Like
Yeah,
even if you're mugging a guy almost a foot shorter than you, at least it shows it's better to be a dick who picked on a little guy than the guy who will do nothing, right?
or
Like
at least, and again, like two wrongs don't make a right. But in this case, if you're Buffalo, fuck it, why not? You're playing New Jersey. You see Jack Hughes out there, take a run at him. You
yeah,
see Jesper Bratt out there, take a run at him. Like, do anything.
yeah. We're not saying pedigree him off the face off, but like
Yeah, no, like that.
uh,
That's obviously to an extreme level that Ryan
hit
Hartman loves to
make
do. But
yeah. You see 86 on his jersey, make sure the hit's a little extra hard, Give him a playoff hit, not a regular season hit. Like
yeah,
make him know you got to keep your head up because we're not to be fucked around with. But they sent a very clear message that nah, you can fuck around with whatever you want. Like
and
I was
this has
just so
been
blown away.
it's just been a regular occurrence in Buffalo for
That's what every Sabres fan
so
was
long.
saying too. They're like since like 2014, like this has just been the team. This is our identity. We just don't do anything and um
Like I get so frustrated because and this happens to a lot of rebuilding teams. Like obviously I cheer for San Jose. They are a rebuilding team slowly coming out of it. You've got good young players, and that naturally is going to create a lot of Sharks fans. Right? The amount of Sharks fans that have been on social media have grown probably or like 20 times
yeah.
since last year.
Whether it's new
And
fans or fans that are willing to say that they're a Sharks fan again because now you
yeah,
got something to cheer for, but
and like the smallest little hit will happen to guys. And there's numerous players on the Sharks that'll drop the gloves, they'll go and just knock that guy over and start feeding him. And again, I'm assuming these are all either new Sharks fans or fans that have only come back for this year. And they're like, "Well, why are you doing that? Like, it wasn't a big hit." And it's like the biggest thing, I think I ripped on the Sharks for like 10 minutes at one point last season when it wasn't Blackwood. Team has had so many goals. I can't remember who the goalie was, but it was Kakkonen. When San
Kakinen.
Jose was playing Vancouver, Kakkonen got a knee in the head and was like basically knocked out, and it happened the
Oh,
same
yeah.
time as Vancouver scored. And so San Jose's goalie is down. They were losing like 6-1. Your goalie's basically knocked out. Instead of the Canucks celebrating a goal, all 5 Canucks players go to check on San Jose's goalie. Not a single Sharks player went to check on their goalie. Or like
Like
go do anything like, hey, you just ran our goalie.
that's
Like
so brutal.
the team was so down in the dumps and it was just a shit
I
show
remember
that
you talking about that
they
too.
couldn't even be bothered. So now, yeah, even if there's the smallest push to your fourth line grinder, everybody's jumping in there because that's the team identity now. It's protect your players. We're all on the same level. No one's above the team. You go out there and you're a family. And Vancouver this year could probably use that motto, and especially Buffalo. But it's like, so now it's like, yeah, you can actually see a team that, again, despite being the bottom team in the league again, the team actually has some heart and grit, and they don't just roll over and be like, yeah, run our player.
It's an
We don't care.
important
It's like
culture.
you
It's
touch
a
our
really
player.
important culture to have.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know for sure. I legitimately think there is a locker room rule in Tampa that if the goalie gets knocked over and you don't go in there to fight somebody unless you're staying out to avoid the second man in rule or whatever, like you'll get healthy scratched.
I mean,
Like
you have to. Like,
like
if you have
literally
Vasilevsky, you have to. That's
it
your.
there's been times where it's Jonas Johansson, it's Curtis McElhaney, all 5 guys go in and fucking mug the dude,
Well, I
and
mean,
he's
but like
like,
you have to. You can't just turn your back
obviously,
because it's not your starter.
obviously. But, like, I'm saying, like, obviously with Vasilevsky, but even when it's the other guys, they're still flying in there like they're being paid to beat the shit out of these guys because it's just nobody touches our crease. And the same
Yeah.
thing with Florida. Florida has that just as much. And that's one thing that, teams like Toronto have been criticized in the past. Are they willing to go in and fuck with people if they start pushing at you and they start going after your goalie and they, if Matthews gets hit, is somebody standing up? Like that's the stuff people have asked, do they have that? And in the past few years, I think they've had it a lot more than they did in the previous 5.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things that it's hard to see that on a stat sheet, but not a lot of teams win the cup without having at least some of that. Like you got
Yeah,
to be
no,
able
I
to stand
completely
up.
agree. And that's what we're saying, right? Like, even if, because Buffalo is a talented team, but it is a Charmin soft team. You make the
Yeah,
playoffs, you go up against Washington, you genuinely might just get shut out every game because your team will be even too scared
to take the blue line.
to do anything. Yeah, like, um, yeah. Let's before we wrap this up, let's give a little bit of love to the Western Conference a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, before we move on, I do just want to say, because I did bring it up before. The Ottawa Senators haven't made the playoffs since the 16-17 season. That is the third longest drought in the NHL. The second being the Red Wings at 15-16 season. I thought they'd made it a little more recent than that. And the Sabres, of course, 2010 is the last time they made the playoffs.
and that drought's going to continue.
Yeah.
Moving on to the West. What are your thoughts? Like, I think the West is, again, pretty much kind of
So
set, aside from that second wild card spot.
I mean,
And I think it really is going to end up just coming down to 2 teams.
yeah, like those, how I was saying, I wouldn't even call teams like Florida and Toronto guaranteed in the playoffs because they're only 6 points in right now. But like over here in the West, the Jets are in by 30 points. The Dallas Stars and Minnesota Wild are in by 20 and 17 points. The Oilers are in by,
Winnipeg's 20 points.
oh no, am I bad at math?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
okay though.
79 points, and yeah, you are absolutely right. I added an extra 1. Uh,
But basically, we'll call it 30 because Winnipeg's a lock to make the playoffs.
pretty much one of the only 2 teams still in the race for the President's Trophy at the moment. It really is
Yeah.
between the Jets and the Capitals at this point. Um,
Nobody would have thought that.
Nobody. Certainly
Nobody
not
would
me.
have.
Certainly not me. But, like, the Jets, the Stars, they're locked in. The Wilds are slipping a little bit. Uh, they probably make it, but
But again, what's
I
the
don't
next
know.
Central team? Utah, 13 points behind them.
Yeah, I guess because, yeah, even if
You don't even have
Colorado
to worry
passes
about the
them,
wild card spot for Minnesota. Oh, well, I guess Colorado, but again, then you got to have what? Colorado jumps you, and you got to have Calgary and Vancouver.
They're only
Probably
7 points ahead.
unlikely.
Probably not going to happen, but like
It
they've got some
could, but
they've got some important injuries in Minnesota. I feel more confident about the Torontos and the Floridas of the world than with Minnesota,
yeah.
but I think they probably still make it, more likely than not. The Oilers and the Golden Knights, they're in. I have faith in those teams for sure. They're in by a dozen points ish each.
I
Uh,
expect LA to getting healthy, getting Doughty back is huge. You're
yeah,
getting great goaltending.
they are
Again,
at
not a lock, but you probably are gonna be in.
yeah, they're definitely not a lot because they're only 3 points back is both the Canucks and the Flames on the Kings.
Yeah.
The Knights do have, or sorry, the Kings do have 2 games in hand on both those teams, but it's close enough that it is still a race. So
Yeah.
things definitely still could change in the West, but it feels much less likely than the East. I what the matchups are right now, like this is probably the playoffs, honestly, except I would probably take out the Flames and put in Vancouver. I just think they've got a bit just too much top end talent to not make the playoffs.
See, I think Calgary makes it because
But
Calgary's
Calgary's been
getting
playing so well.
the way better goaltending. Calgary has way better depth. Assuming
That
they don't sell off any pieces at the deadline, it doesn't sound like they're going to.
no, they just went out and got a Joel Farabee.
Yeah, and Morgan Frost.
Yeah. They went out and bought because they saw that they could be contenders this year.
I would love to see a world in which, and very unlikely because again, it's tough to see anyone passing Winnipeg in the West. But like, if we were able to get Edmonton leapfrogs Winnipeg, Calgary sneaks in, like, could you imagine a Battle of Alberta between this Edmonton team that's looking to go back to the Cup final? They're labeled as the Cup favorite, and then you've got this Flames team that was supposed to be like bottom 5 team in the league, like going through a rebuild, finds a way in the playoffs, and those teams go up against each other. Like that would be.
I would love to see that
And you know what?
because
Calgary
they
could win that series.
because Calgary
Not
before
likely, but it's possible.
I definitely wouldn't pick them to win it because playoff Draisaitl and McDavid are an entirely different beast. But
But Calgary's got that unknown in Dustin Wolf come playoff time.
that's true. That
Like Dustin Wolf
that could
is
also be a
already
bad.
looking like a goalie that could steal you a playoff series, and he hasn't even been in the playoffs yet.
Yeah, but he is also a rookie. That it might come out that he's played a couple too many games for his rookie year this year. Like it might he could fall off at any moment. I'm hoping
See,
he
but
doesn't.
like we
I don't
say,
think he will.
rookie, he's going to be turning 24 in April.
True. Yeah, he's not.
He's logged so much time in the AHL. Like he is a rookie, but
He's new to the NHL and
yeah.
NHL talent, and like playing 7 games ish in a row against McDavid Draisaitl is a lot different than the years in the AHL.
Oh, 100%. But I mean, if there is a goalie that is a young goal in this league, he's probably number one in terms of goalies that could handle it.
Yeah, I
There's not
completely
many
agree on
other
that.
young goalies that I would even have faith in stealing a game or keeping a team competitive. But
Yeah,
Wolf has proven that he is no regular goalie, and
Sure.
he's kind of the X factor of why I think Calgary probably ends up making it over Vancouver if it comes down to those two. Just that
It,
Calgary's got the better goaltending at the end of the day.
I would love to see how the Flames would perform in a first round matchup this year against the Oilers. Like, because in the past, like when they had Lindholm, Goudreau, Kachuk, like all of them, they expected to be there and they wanted to go on deep runs. But now it'd be like we're playing with house money. Nobody expected us to be here.
There's
And
no pressure.
there's
Literally all the pressure would be on Edmonton in
there's
that
no
series.
pressure and there's everything to gain. Winning a playoff series, amazing. Going to the second round, great. Beating Edmonton to get there, are you kidding me? And Edmonton,
Yeah.
they have everything to lose. They were a goal away from winning the cup last year. They could now lose to a rebuilding rival in round 1. And
And the thing is
McDavid's extension could be ready next summer. Like
yeah.
all the
And the
pressure would
thing
be
is
on them.
whether
That would be so fun.
wins the Presidents or top of their division or wild card spot, them and Toronto are always going to have the most pressure on them out of any team in the playoffs.
Pretty much.
Regardless of where they finish, the pressure is going to be all on them and all eyes on them to, can they do it? Can they win this? Can they get over the hump type of thing? Thankfully for Edmonton, they kind of brushed away a little bit of that by making the Cup final next year. But as long as you've got McDavid and Draisaitl there, like, the pressure is going to be there until you win a Cup with them. And again, if it came down to a first round Battle of Alberta against a Flames team that wasn't even supposed to be in the playoffs, like, the pressure would be, there'd be a lot of pressure and people breathing down the Oilers' necks to, like, you can't lose this.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. That would be such a fun playoff series.
Yeah. I guess we did it for the East. Do you want to give some predictions on who you think makes it in the West here, or do you? I mean,
I think it's
we
exactly
kind
as
of
is right
already.
now.
I was gonna say, yeah. I guess you said just Flames over Canucks, like,
Because I don't see Utah coming back into it. I don't see St. Louis, don't see Anaheim. Seattle's not. Nashville is definitely not now. They have not gained any ground on any teams. And in
they had
Chicago
a
and San Jose, they're going to be fighting for first overall. So
the Preds for a second made me believe. They went on a 5-game win streak. They looked great. They were making steam up the charts, and then they just lost 5 in a row. They're right back where they started. They played 500 hockey. They had
even
a
with
bag
that 5-win
they had a
streak,
big bag skate as
I
well.
wasn't bought in. Would have loved to see Nash in the playoffs, but I've never believed in this team since, like, the 5-game mark into the season.
Yeah, I was thinking if they went on a magical run sometime in January, there's like a chance they could sneak in or at least attempt to like make other teams sweat about it. And after
Pulled to
5
Detroit.
games, like
And
10,
what did
yeah,
Detroit do that
and then
Nashville wouldn't? Let's make that coaching change.
yeah, which is too bad because I do think Brunette's a pretty good coach. I don't know if there's a
I
better
do as
option out
well.
there,
I
but
do think he is a good coach, but
something's
it's
got
just
to
not
happen.
working. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just not working.
It's crazy. They brought in so many veteran great players, and above all else, it sounds like just locker room is the problem. Like, not necessarily fighting in between. They don't have a culture similar to the Sabres. The Preds will definitely go and fight if you lay out one of their guys. But it
It's
does
tough
sound
to
like
build a
it's
culture when you're losing, though.
yeah,
It's tough to build anything and gain any traction when it's just you keep trying to climb the mountain, you just keep getting kicked down over and over. Like,
but it's just
it's tough
crazy.
to get anything generating.
But they didn't have this culture last year. Like, they won last year. They got into the playoffs last year, and then they brought in a bunch of proven winners
But that's
in
the
the
thing, though, right?
offseason.
Like, you were
You
already a
added
playoff team.
you
You bring in
added
all these
winners to
guys.
winners.
You're expecting to be a good team, and when nothing's going right, you went however long, team couldn't score goals.
It's just crazy that they couldn't turn it around back then.
Players are going to get down on themselves, and yeah, it's just nothing going right for them.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll come back next year. I think they've got the team to definitely do it. This was unfortunately just a very tough year for them, no doubt.
But I think that's do you have anything else planned for the rest of this episode?
Nope, that's all I got. Was trying to come up with something for the end, but
All right. I just grabbed one quick thing we can do here. So this is who is this? Who is this put out by? The Score. This put out by The Score. This is their current uploaded 6 hours ago Norris trophy rankings. So there's some not very surprising names on here, obviously, but I want you to try and guess who they have in the top 5. The 5th name is pretty surprising to me. I'll give you 10 guesses overall to get the 5 players.
all right. Well, Quinn Hughes,
They have him as number one, had him in number one in their last ranking.
Cale Makar.
Number two, he was also number two in their last ranking.
Let me just pull up a list of teams here. Would they?
Number three was also number three in their previous ranking. It's been there for a bit.
Good defenseman on a good team. I'm gonna go Josh Morrissey.
Josh Morrissey is number four. Yeah,
Oh,
he
number
was
4. Oh, I
previously
jumped over
fourth.
number 3.
They only have one new guy on this iteration.
Probably no Adam Fox.
We talked very briefly about number three earlier. You mentioned him.
Oh, did we?
You mentioned that he is day to day.
Oh shit! Yeah, Zach Werenski.
Zach Werenski is number
Not
three.
used to
There
even
you go.
thinking about Columbus players when it comes to winning awards.
Right.
So what's that? I've got.
You've got your 4 for 4. You've got the first 4. You just need number 5, which is kind of what I figured would happen. But you got 6 guesses to get them, so you can throw out a couple.
Probably. Again, maybe they'll go the route because again, just good defenseman on a good team. John Carlson.
It is not John Carlson. Not a bad shout. Caps are doing pretty damn good. He got 5 guesses.
5 guesses. Victor Hedman.
It is not Victor Hedman.
I'm just trying to think of like teams in a playoff spot with a defenseman that's having a great year. No one for Detroit. No one for Toronto.
This name shocked me a little bit.
No one for Florida. No one for Carolina. No one for New Jersey. Probably maybe Heiskanen. Miro.
It is not Miro Heiskanen.
Not Miro Heiskanen. Minnesota, no. Colorado, we already said Makar. No Utah. Edmonton doesn't have anyone. Vegas, probably not. How many guesses do I have left? Can I burn one on a Vegas player? Maybe I can.
I think you got 5 left.
Oh, 5. Oh, geez. Give me Shea Theodore.
It is not Shea Theodore.
Okay, give me Pietrangelo.
It is not Pietrangelo.
I don't know how good of a year they're having, but I figured maybe they get some rub for being on Vegas.
They're, I imagine, having pretty good years.
Shit. Boston wouldn't have. I'm down to 3 guesses?
Yeah.
Okay, Charlie McAvoy.
It is not Charlie McAvoy.
Fuck.
Yeah, he missed like a month and a half earlier this season.
Who's a defenseman who's having a good year?
I will say they are in the Eastern Conference.
In the East. It's kind of what I was thinking. I was looking through the West. I was like, there's really no one else outside of Morrissey, Hughes and Makar. Okay, Washington, no. Carolina, no. Should be Brent Burns, but unfortunately not. New Jersey, I don't.
The anti-beard bias.
So. Maybe Dougie Hamilton, but I doubt it. Because you got to have at least a decent defensive numbers, I feel like. Columbus, no. Islanders, no. No one can stay healthy. Rangers, we said no to Adam Fox. Pittsburgh would be no, and Philly, no. All right. So it's got to be someone in the Atlantic. Buffalo's no. Montreal's no. Boston, we already ruled that out. Tampa already ruled that out.
I don't believe you've mentioned the team they're on yet.
Don't think it'd be Morgan Riley. He's been bad this year. Not like bad, but in terms of offensive production, which does matter.
Which is usually his main selling point.
Could be Cider. Could be Cider in Detroit. Thomas Chabot.
It is not Thomas Chabot.
It's not Thomas Chabot. Jake Sanderson.
Number 5 in the Norris ranking, Jake Sanderson.
Really?
Right? I think you've named around a handful of guys I probably would have put on this list before him. Jake Sanderson, 53 games played this year, 5 goals, 30 assists for 35 points. Average time on ice 24-22. Expected goals for 53%. They're good numbers. I'd love to have him on my team.
You see, he
I'm
started out much hotter. Like
fifth.
his numbers have taken a dip over the last little bit.
Yeah, I'm really not sure the the fifth in Norris ranking seems
Yeah,
a bit much for him, but
love me some Sanderson. He's having a great year, but
yeah,
yeah, fifth
13
for
points in his
Norris
last 14
is.
games. So he's on a bit of a hot streak at the moment. But I was just right near the end. I saw that and I was surprised to see that he was on there. So
I mean, call
it
me biased, but like even over Sanderson, I would have Jake Wallman.
I mean you
29 points in
you got to
42
the
games. He's a
Sens.
zero on a bad San Jose team.
Yeah. You said the Sens and then you said Shabbat first. Like
Yeah,
he's not even the
yeah,
first defenseman you think
actually,
of on that team, right? I was surprised
because
you didn't say
because
Sider.
he was having. I was debating it, but I was like, yeah, the offensive numbers probably aren't high enough.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what it comes down to, which is kind of why I'm surprised Sanderson, though, given that
Well, yeah, right? He's
his
got
offense numbers aren't. I mean, they're good for a defenseman, but like they're not the level of the
thir-
other guys in the
yeah,
conversation.
35 and 53 games is on pace for what, probably 55 to 60 points.
Like, it's probably what Josh Morrissey has right now, who is fourth on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, Sider has the exact same points line except for 2 less assists. So he's got 5 goals, 28 assists for 33 points.
Okay,
So,
and then got to mention he's got good defensive numbers
yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So
Oh
it
yeah,
looks like
good on Jake Sanderson though. That's
yeah, it looks like
good
he's been
company to be in.
elite defensively all season is what they're citing him being on here too. He's starting to
Oh,
score a bit now and he's been really good defensively. Allegedly.
now you know it's all it takes. All you got to do is fool a couple people. But I think that is a good spot to wrap up this episode. Once again, we do want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. If you want to talk hockey, throw us some mock trades that we could review, or if you just want to let us know who you think is going to end up making the playoffs in either the East or West, you can do so down clicking the link for any of our socials. They're in the description of all episodes across all platforms. Braden, as always, give us your final thoughts.
A Mikko Rantanen-less Nathan McKinnon is no longer leading the league in points. It is officially the Leon Draisaitl show. 81 points. He's leading the points race by 1. He's leading the goals race by 5. Uh, if this dude wins another Hart and Lindsay while having 2 while playing with McDavid, that's wild. That's just
And if he
insane
wins
talent.
all that, there's no way in hell Mikko Rantanen can ask for 14. That those contract talks will be dead immediately.
Uh, I don't know. We didn't know the cap was going up when he signed that either. That was old cap signing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Maybe not with Carolina, but I mean, open market, genuinely no idea what he'd sign for. I could see a 12 and a half, a 13 mil. I could see a 15 and a half. Like it depends who's desperate and who wants him.
I'd pour one out for that team that would give that
I
if a team gave him 15.
Yeah, not
Could
saying
see
it would
Utah
age
doing
well.
it. They're looking to spend considering they're going to have a ECHL logo and whatnot. But
Yeah.
we all spend today missing the Arizona Coyotes and hoping we get them back soon. But that does wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you guys all enjoyed. And as always, we'll see you guys out on the ice on Tuesday next week.